Hello to our social media followers in the Middle East and around the world. I'm social media journalist Cody Combs here for the National in Washington, D.C. And let's get right down to it. The U.S. election results are coming in, and we still do not have a winner. Right now, approximately Joe Biden has 209 electoral votes. Donald Trump has 112. This thing is not by any means over. One of those candidates needs 270. They're not there yet. It's anybody's ball game. I'm going to first go to Joyce Karam in Washington, D.C. with myself. Joyce, what do you make of these results so far?
Hi, Cody, and hi to our viewers. It's definitely a close race. We are seeing Donald Trump and Joe Biden running neck to neck in very important states such as Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and Arizona. If we look at this race now, it's not a complete picture, because when you take states such as Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, they don't count the absentee ballots, the early vote ballots, till later. Why is this important and critical? Because we are in a pandemic, and a lot of the Biden supporters voted early. So the numbers we are seeing now don't reflect the end results. This, I think it's going to be a long week, and we may not have the name of the next president of the United States till the end of the week.
Wow, okay. And let's go to Willy Lowry. He's in Motor City, Detroit, Michigan, of course. That is a battleground state. That's a state that Donald Trump won in 2016. He surprised a lot of people by winning it, and he needs to sort of keep it here in 2020. Willie, is he going to do that?
Well, Cody, I mean, that is the big question. And as Joyce was mentioning, at the moment, it's really too early to tell. Certainly, the polls show that he has about a 10% lead, but that is quite misleading because, as Joyce mentioned, the majority of voters here in Michigan, about 3.3 thus far, voted absentee. So their votes haven't really been calculated yet. And so the numbers that we're seeing right now are from the in-person voters, those who came in, hit the polls today, and those numbers favor Trump.
And Willie, I know there's a heavy Arab American population in Michigan, and it's difficult to say right now, but how is that Arab American vote breaking down right now, do you think?
So I was in Dearborn earlier this afternoon, and I have to say those were the longest lines that I saw throughout Michigan, and I went to several polling stations in Detroit, but also all the way up in Flint, two of the big urban centers here. Dearborn had the longest lines. Everybody I spoke to was excited to be there to execute their constitutional right. According to a recent poll by the Arab American Institute, the majority of Arab Americans are going to vote Democrat. They're going to vote for Biden, but that doesn't mean there's not an underlying amount of support for Trump. So I would have to give the edge for the Arab American community in Michigan to Biden. But again, Trump's going to get some of them, and that's going to help him, both candidates, honestly.
And let's go back to Joyce in Washington, D.C., if we can. Joyce, what is most surprising you tonight so far? There's always a surprise. Every 4 years, something happens that we weren't expecting. What's surprising you so far?
I'm surprised if you look at the turnout. It's a record turnout. It's the enthusiasm behind this election on both sides, Republican and Democrat. I mean, this election may go down as the biggest popular vote in history, and that's I think a good thing for the U.S. There is more participation in the political protest. I'm also surprised. At the polling, some of the polling was off. Whether we're looking at, for example, Florida, only few polls showed President Trump ahead. The majority had, Mr. Biden. So that begs the question, are we in a margin of error? Did people, is there a shy Trump voter element here? Or did people just lie in their answers? We don't know, but I think Florida is interesting. President Trump has built a bigger base among the Latino voter. So that's also, I think, one thing to take from the numbers we have tonight. But the full picture we won't have till days to come.
So, Joyce, you're very seasoned at these presidential campaigns. Let's say, hypothetically, you're sitting in Donald Trump's campaign room. What does he need to do to close this deal tonight? And conversely, let's say you're sitting in Joe Biden's campaign room. What does he need to do to become the next president?
I mean, absolutely. I'm not that seasoned, but if I were looking at this map, I think Pennsylvania is the biggest prize. Whoever wins Pennsylvania could be the next president, the 20 electoral votes. So this is where I think a lot of the pundits, a lot of the advisors for these campaigns will be looking at in the next hours, tomorrow, as Pennsylvania counts the early votes. And I think, for both of them, these two men have fought a very bitter and long campaign. And it'll be interesting to see, will they concede? What will happen? Will we see a recount? A lot of questions. I think we're still early in this process.
And Willie, let's bring it back to you for a moment. In the state of Michigan, where do you see this going tonight? I know you and I have spoken at length about, when it comes down to yard signs. There were a lot of yard signs you saw in Michigan. We both joked that, well, that's not a scientific way of measuring how these elections are going to turn out. Nonetheless, President Trump does still enjoy some support there.
Absolutely. First of all, Joyce, I want to say on behalf of Michiganders, of which I am not, but I'm here, I'm a little insulted that you think it's going to be Pennsylvania that decides this thing. But, I honestly, I think you're right, but I think Michigan's a pretty good bellwether state as well. It was so close last time, just under 11,000 votes, that I really feel that was the kind of barometer for President Trump's support. And driving through the state, once you hit the rural areas, it is all Trump all the time. Of course, in the urban centers, predominantly Democrat, you see a lot more Biden-Harris signs, and it's going to come down to the voter turnout. And right now in Michigan, it's looking like, as Joyce was mentioning, it could be a record turnout. And if the cities, the big urban centers of Detroit, Flint, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Ann Arbor, if they come out in force, I think it would go towards Biden.
Okay, so at the end of the day, this is a counting game, and there's still a lot of counting that will be taking place throughout this evening. For all of our viewers, you can stay posted by looking at all of our updates at thenationalnews.com. Reporting live from Washington, D.C., I'm Cody Combs for The National.